He didn't know he'd never see his family again. He didn't know his city would be destroyed. He didn't know one of the most heroic resistance movements of the Second World War had been abandoned by the Allies. Testimonies of the men and women who fought. The Battle for Warsaw, Friday at 9 on BBC Two.
Slightly later than Bill, do we discuss what's wrong with history in 10 minutes here on BBC One Northern Ireland. First, earlier than planned, a Crimewatch update.
Hi and welcome to Crimewatch Update. DC Rav Wilding ended the main programme by saying we'd had a steady amount of calls at the beginning, which was a real understatement. It was terribly slow. Then all of a sudden, well, if you were trying to call in, you might have had difficulty getting through. They suddenly zoomed through the calls. And we're going to start looking at a case of the chief accountant for the Law Society in Edinburgh, who had his face slashed. Somebody had it in for him. Maybe it was one of the Bent solicitors that he was investigating. We don't know. We don't know why Leslie Cumming came home from work to find a man with a knife. Keith, this is one in which not very many people were likely to ring in because not very many people could help, but you've actually done rather well, haven't you?
We have done well. We've had a number of calls from people naming solicitors who they believe may have been behind the attack on Mr. Cumming and may have the motive to carry it out.
Now, you're not convinced that the motive was solicitors who bear a grudge. There might have been other motives. You got anything else on that?
Not in relation to any other motives, no.
What about the guy who actually did the stabbing? You've got DNA on him. Has anybody called with a name to check out?
We have had one phone call from somebody who has named the person who they believe has carried out the attack on Mr. Cumming.
Good. Well, that's going to go on there. Thank you.
Andrew Ramsey is another Scots accountant who appears to have come to grief. He was kidnapped, it seems, by two men pretending to be police officers. There he is, and we're still waiting to find out where he might be.
Cheryl Shackleton came from Lancashire. Her son was only 9 when his mum was murdered. She was murdered in southeast London. We don't know why. This happened 15 years ago. The Metropolitan Police have reopened the case. Very difficult to get to clues from 1991, but my gosh, you've done well.
We have, Nick. Yeah, we've had 11 calls, 5 possible suspects named, and 2 calls that are of particular interest to us.
Now tell us why 2 of such interest to you.
Well, one of them is a person who's actually naming a friend who he believes may have been responsible for the murder, and the other one is a pub landlord who is actually named somebody who boasted about the murder in a local pub.
Now, the first one was naming somebody I think who's already inside for murder.
For double murder, yes.
So that's obviously one to look at. And I think there's a new witness as well.
There is a new witness that's come forward.
From 15 years ago.
Says that at 5 o'clock in the morning that morning he was walking his Alsatian dog and saw somebody fitting the description we gave out earlier of the suspect, acting suspiciously in the park, looking over the fence.
Thank you.
Just time for a very quick update on the CCTV that we showed you earlier. First, the Ladbrokes bookmaker robber. We've had 2 similar sounding names that have been given for that guy. That's looking good. Now listen to this, the Hampshire distraction burglar. We have had loads of calls on that, and 4 callers have given us the exact same name for that guy. I'll tell you what, if it is you on the CCTV, I'd hand yourself in now, mate. And finally, the 2 paedophiles that the police are still hunting in North Wales. We've had 3 names and 3 sightings for those guys. So again, it's looking good. Nick.
To Coleraine, now Northern Ireland, and Norman Moffat, who was murdered by a man who mistook him for a paedophile who used to live locally. I should say the victim was completely innocent. This really shocked Coleraine, and still does, I think, 5 years later. But new information coming in tonight.
Yes, indeed. We have had some very interesting calls, Nick, 2 in particular, where we want the callers to phone back. Both of these people have mentioned a suspect for the crime. Both have mentioned the same person, but unfortunately they haven't explained to me why they think it is this particular person, and they have failed to leave their details for us to contact them back. Clearly that makes it very difficult for us.
Nigel has absolutely guaranteed if you do call in, you'll be treated with the strictest confidence. Please, if you can help with this, let's sort this one out. Thank you.
A rapist conned his way into his victim's home. He left not only his DNA, but a character fingerprint too.
Tom, you love your daddy. Do you love your daddy, yeah? Do you love your daddy, yeah?
Well, DI Ian Corner, you've had, what, over 50 calls on this? You're really pleased with the response?
60 now, yeah, the response has been excellent.
And what, I mean, we show there that he had this very distinctive way of talking. He wanted to be called Daddy. He said yeah at the end of his sentences. And that's something that's been recognised by people.
The callers have really put these two things together and have given some excellent leads from the locality and not from the locality as well. The response has been excellent.
Great, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Remember that armed robbery at Wiston Hospital in Liverpool? Well, we've had a couple of calls naming two guys and they've already featured in the investigation. So it looks like the net is closing in. If this is you, I think you should call us before we call you.
We've also been looking for three men who robbed a couple in Edgware in Middlesex. The couple had forgotten to lock their door when they went to bed. They nearly paid for their lives. The violence used by the three burglars was just phenomenal, and the two are really very lucky to survive. We were hoping we'd get a lot of calls from the Edgware area. Of course, there was a major Arsenal football match tonight, and I suspect a lot of the local young lads were watching that rather than Crimewatch. Who knows? But if you know anything about this case, we've got three very violent, dangerous people out there. Please give us a call right now.
He lived life to the full, but just 11 days after his 85th birthday, Hallam Tennyson's life was taken by a killer he let into his home. Well, DCI Tenny Nash, there's one particular potential piece of evidence that you wanted to find out more about or eliminate tonight, and you think you might have done that?
Yes, someone has phoned forward and explained that they think it was their car parked at the back at the material time on that day.
Because this car was parked in the private car park of the flats where Hallam left. You wanted to know, obviously, if that was suspicious. This sounds like an entirely innocent reason, then.
Yes, it appears to be entirely innocent, and if that is the case, it rules out lots of other lines of inquiry around that vehicle.
It saves you a lot of work. Good.
Saves a lot
Thanks
of work.
very much.
Thank you.
A bit difficult to assess so far the calls we've had on the murder of Nora Tate. She was attacked in a home in Doncaster back in October. We're not quite sure how the killer got in. There is some suspicion that it might have been a travelling salesman, and if so, well, we were very keen. We thought he looked like this. We were very keen of people at Doncaster to tell us who this guy is. He was known as the knockoff man because the police thought that he was selling stolen goods. We've had three names put forward. They're not the same three names, so it's going to take the police some time to work through and just check out whether there's anything in any of them so far.
We're looking for a burglar who, in order to get a key for a safe, was prepared to take off the fingers of the woman he tied up.
And then all of a sudden I felt my fingers being touched, and then it's like a soaring, gradually getting deep and deep, and the pains getting greater and greater.
Well, extraordinary level of violence. It's quite clear from the people that are calling in that they are very worried about being identified. Please do call in. All your calls will be treated in confidence if that is what you want. Two names have been given, though. As well as trying to name the attacker, let me just remind you about the jewellery that was taken. There was some earrings, a pendant, a very distinctive giraffe brooch as well, gold and diamonds. If you recognise that jewellery, if you've seen anyone with it, or has anyone tried to flog you any of that jewellery, we certainly want to hear from you tonight.
Folks, we want to hear from you. If you can help with any of our cases, you can find details of all of them on our website at bbc.co.uk/crime. If you've been the victim of a crime and would like to talk to somebody about it, you can always call Victim Support Line. That's on 0845 30 30 900.
Crimewatch is back on Tuesday, May the 23rd. From the team and all the investigating officers here, thank you for your calls. Every month we have proof they really do make a difference.
And whatever happens, from all of us here, sleep well. Good night.
Good night.